Let's turn attention back to the 10th Assembly as we continue to analyze the progress made and some of the challenges in the last 1 year. Let's now speak to the Chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business, Francis Waive. Good to have you join us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
So we had your colleague, who is a deputy spokesman for the House, and he was, he talked about how you have considered more than 1,500 bills. Even in your report, you have talked about it. I think you said about 1,008 of them are now at the phase of second reading, of past second reading. But for a lot of people who hear that, they are wondering what impact will this bill have, or immediate impact and long-term impact of these bills.
Well, majority of the bills have got to do with constitution review and then Electoral Act review. Those are work in progress. Usually, the constitution review would go on, a process where you collect memoranda and all that. And then when we eventually get to a stage where the Constitution Review Committee sends in their report, that again will vote on, and then it goes round to the state assemblies, and we get their results. Two-thirds of them, what they agree on, will now come back to the House and then to Mr. President for access. So it's a process. The same thing with the Electoral Act. As present, we have up to nearly 100 amendments proposed to the Electoral Act, some similar that we're consolidating. And before the 2027 elections, we would have gotten to a process where we now do a public hearing, and then INEC and other stakeholders, civil society organizations will come and add their opinion, and then the law will be passed and assented to for the 2027 election. So lawmaking is a process. So it's not just that these bills have been introduced right now and then you get the effect right now. But then there are a number of important bills that have been assented to already, that are at work already in the country. So those ones we can begin to see the benefits. For instance, Appropriation Act that we passed, the 2025 Appropriation Act, has already been implemented, at least the recurrent expenditure aspect. And this government is already trying to block all loopholes before beginning the capital expenditures. We've also done the elongation of the lifetime of the 2023 Act, which is the to make it come up to the end of June. So all of that is already in process. So the Students' Loans Act, for instance, that we did, students are already applying. So to say that these legislations, when would they start coming to fruition, except you're not familiar with them? The National Assembly Library Act that we passed, you can see that Mr. President has already commissioned the library. So it's into work. The Electricity Act that we have amended, now state governments, private entities can now go into, it's no longer the exclusive list for the president alone, for the presidency alone, or the executive alone, or the federal government alone, I mean. Now, it's on the concurrent list. We have states now that are generating electricity, transmitting electricity, and so eventually we're going to have improved electricity. Now we talk about the Small Arms Act that we have also amended and passed, and all that is helping already. Fire rescue, we've worked on that. The Federal Capital Territory, you see all the work going on in Federal Capital, all the construction going on, and everybody's applauding that. But it's part of what we did. We had to go through appropriation again for 2023, supplementary for the Federal Capital Territory, then the 2024 appropriation, and now we've even done a supplementary for 2023 for the FCT. All that is the development you are seeing across the FCT now. So the laws we are making, they are helping, and it's look at the judicial officers. Their salaries have been stagnated for quite a long time. We have taken the bull by the horn and passed that.
And it's interesting. So two bills you mentioned. One of them is the Electricity Amendment Act.
Yeah.
You've also talked about that, the salaries of the judicial officers.
Yeah.
I want to get to that in a moment, but quickly, I just want to get an update on that Electricity Amendment Bill, which is now an act.
Yes.
There was an amendment that was supposed to ensure that host communities get some sort of payment and just almost just like the oil communities, where you're supposed to get some sort of payment, because you're hosting the power plants. Has that begin to happen?
Well, that's the duty of the executive. We don't execute; we make the laws.
But at least you have oversight functions. You're almost like enforcement.
From our oversight functions, that usually should happen with the generating angle. There are phases in this. You have the transmission, you have the distribution. Distribution is everywhere, so you can't be talking of host communities with that. But where there's generation, of course, there should be. And I believe that the appropriate committee, the Committee on Power, will be oversighting that and seeing that communities that are impacted through generation get some form of benefits. I know that committees, because in the last assembly, I was Deputy Chair Power. I know that communities in the hydro area are currently benefiting a little bit. It can get better. And now those that are generating through gas, they are going to come on board and start enjoying that. So that's part of what we have achieved through our legislation, and we're very proud of it. Nigerians are benefiting.
Because you also mentioned the judicial officers, I'm sure you also saw how people were quick to criticize the House and just generally the 10th Assembly, because they say, look, you were quick to pass a bill to increase the salaries for judicial officers, which some people say is long overdue, but that you're quite kind of silent on the issue of minimum wage, except for where you need to, say, Labour, put aside your strike. That's the only time we get to hear from. Where does the House stand when it comes to minimum wage?
I wouldn't agree that we are slow on the minimum wage issue. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas has been on the forefront, talking about this, that Nigerians deserve a living wage and not a minimum wage. So that tells you the position of the House. This 10th House of Representatives is the people's house. We listen to the people. We do everything in conjunction with them. We hear from them. And it's what they say that we bring to the table to discuss on the floor. So Mr. President has said that he's bringing in an executive bill to amend the minimum wage. We're expecting that bill, and we have a right, we have a duty to look at it and push upward or downward. But you cannot begin to talk about it so quickly before that bill comes, because the minimum wage is such that have a lot of implications. You want to talk about the fact that there are some percentages of the minimum wage that you must pay as allowances to staff. So the implication is huge. And then before you talk of grade level 1 or 01 up to 17. So the implication for the economy will be huge. And you're not thinking that you don't want to spend all your resources on just recurrent expenditure. You want to be able to provide some infrastructure, some capital developments. So those are the issues. But we have listened to Labour. We've had discussions with them, and we know their position, and we're expecting the bill. We're going to do justice to that.
Is there a figure that is satisfactory to the House?
Well, the House of Representatives is made up of 360 persons. So you can't say there is one figure that everybody has agreed on. When the bill comes, it will be discussed. After the first reading, we'll go into the second reading. At the second reading, every single member will air his opinion of what he thinks is the figure that he thinks should go. So we'll get on that debate, and then there will be a public hearing. And then we'll get to a point where I believe we'll get to a compromise, an average, and that will not be the...
So I asked that question because when you look at the figures on the table, there is a huge disparity. Labour is saying it's 250, government is saying it's 62, governors rather are saying 62,000, but there has to be a middle ground. There has to be some sort of figure, even if it's not, taking the average. What does the House think?
I don't think there is a big disparity anymore, because you can see that Labour is coming down, government is going up.
The last figure on the table is 250 from Labour, and governors is 62. That's a huge disparity, almost like 4 times.
Yeah, but then you see that Labour has come down and government is going up. So there's hope. We must be hopeful. That's the only way to move forward. I believe that as the bill comes to the House, with what has happened so far, and then we'll talk to Labour again in the public hearing, we are going to get some results.
So in his Democracy Day message, the Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, assured Nigerians of more dividends of democracy.
Sure.
What is the House doing to facilitate that?
Well, that has been encapsulated in the legislative agenda. If you look at the legislative agenda, issues of insecurity are dealt with, issues of food security, agriculture, they are dealt with, living standard of the masses, productive economy, issues about the exchange rate. All of that is dealt with in the legislative agenda, so that Nigerians should the quality of life in Nigeria should become improved. The life expectancy should go up. These are the things we are looking at. We are talking to our people. We are the closest to our people. And then what we feel from them, we are bringing on table. I can assure you that this house is the people's house, and the people will celebrate us at the end of the day.
All right, your second year just began. In the next 1 year, I'm sure we'll have, if not you, some of your colleagues again to assess 2 years, and we'll also speak to Nigerians, as we've always done, to get their opinion of, and perspective of the House. Thank you so much for your time, as always. The chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business, Francis Waive. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thank you.